In the last episode, I introduced the three selves and the competition between them. The conditioned self is the adversary, the sum of your past reinforcement, the sparring partner that reveals what has been trained so far. The preferred self is the standard, the behavioral template that defines the excellence you prefer. And the choosing self, that's you, is the competitor, the faculty of volition that uses the circumstances and the four signals to close the gap. That framework gives you a way to understand self-competition. It does not tell you how to practice it without burning out. You have finite conscious attention. The adversary does not fatigue as quickly, and the gap can be measured across 4 dimensions simultaneously, creating a temptation the framework does not prevent. Competing on all 4 signals at once, every session, until you are exhausted and the competition becomes something you dread or avoid outright. Today we address the calibration in your exercise practice. How to compete without burning out. How to lose a session without becoming discouraged. How to choose which signal to compete on, and when not to compete at all. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Consistency, from fitness to flourishing. Here's what intelligent self-competition isn't, to avoid mistakes from the start. It is not competing on every signal in every session. Your conscious attention is a limited resource. Monitoring 4 signals simultaneously across every set is cognitive overload. The person who tries to win on all 4 signals in a single session will win on none of them and leave the gym increasingly reluctant to return. It's not treating every session as a competition. The adversary is always present, but not every session is a contest. Some sessions are maintenance. Some are recovery. Some are practice. You're refining a standard without attempting to exceed a previous baseline. A session where the gap did not narrow is not a failure if you decided in advance that today was not a competition day. It's not punishing the conditioned self for winning. When the gap widens, when last week's weight does not move, when last session's standard crumbles, you respond with inquiry, not self-criticism. Was recovery incomplete? Was the signal choice inappropriate? The loss is data. Punishment is not the discipline. Return is the discipline. You, the choosing self, cannot outwork the conditioned self. Your conscious thinking is slow, deliberate, and inefficient, handling an estimated 40 to 50 bits of information per second. The conditioned self is fast, automatic, and highly efficient, handling millions of bits of information per second. When you get overwhelmed, you stop choosing. The conditioned self takes over and defaults to what it's been trained to do, by chance or by past choices. 3 things happen when you try to compete on too many signals at once. Attention fragments. Each signal consumes a different type of focus. Intensity demands willingness to face difficulty. Volume demands patience to stay. Density demands discipline to compress. And quality demands precision to hold the standard. Divided across all 4, each receives a fraction of what it requires. The gap does not close on any dimension. Feedback becomes noise. If you changed all 4 signals in the same session, you cannot know which change moved the gap. The data is contaminated. You lose the ability to learn what works. The competition becomes aversive. Competing on 4 signals every session guarantees you will lose on at least 2. Repeated failure, when not handled skillfully, can lead to avoidance. Instead of transforming, you may choose to stop showing up. The fix is the same principle that calibrated every signal in this series. Choose one thing, one dimension of the competition. Hold it for a cycle. Let the others ride. The single signal is the decision to compete on one dimension of the gap between the conditioned self and the preferred self for a defined period, typically a training cycle of 4 to 12 weeks. You select a signal, the other 3 are maintained, not competed on. The feedback is clean, the attention is undivided. So here's what you do. Choose the signal. Where is the conditioned self furthest from the preferred self? If the load has stalled, choose intensity. If work capacity is insufficient, choose volume. If recovery is slow, choose density. If the standard has been drifting, choose quality. You do not choose the signal on a whim. You choose the signal most appropriate to realizing your most important current goal. Define the cycle. 1 session is too short. 4 weeks is a minimum. 12 weeks is a standard training block. You commit. For example, for the next 8 weeks, I am competing on intensity. Everything else is maintenance. Maintain the other signals. Maintenance means holding the current baseline. 12 working sets per week stays at 12. 3 minutes of rest between sets stays at 3 minutes. Do not progress these signals. Do not let them regress. They are the circumstances under which the competition occurs. Compete on the chosen signal. Move the selected variable toward the preferred self. Add weight when you complete the prescribed reps. Add a set when it recovers. Compress rest by 15 seconds. Hold a higher quality standard. Whatever the variable, that's the one you focus on moving. Clean measurement is the result. Review at the end of the cycle. Did the gap narrow? Select the same signal or a new one where the gap is now widest. Did the gap widen? Ask why. Was the signal appropriate? Were conditions favorable? The review is neutral. You do not punish yourself for a lost cycle. You learn and return. Some cycles the gap does not narrow. The conditioned self held its ground, or the gap widened. Your response determines whether the competition continues. Accept the result. The logbook reports what happened. The conditioned self squatted 185 for 5 reps last cycle and 185 for 4 reps this cycle. That is a fact. Facts are not judgments. They are data. Ask why. A cycle where intensity was the focus, but sleep averaged 5 hours, is not a failed competition. It was a competition held under circumstances that had unexpected complications. Adjust the circumstances or adjust the signal. Do not punish. Sparring partners win rounds. If the adversary never won, it would not be a competent adversary. Punishment is not productive. It stops behavior, but suggests no way forward. And, worst case, it stops any further attempts. Instead, adapt and return. The next session is always open. The next cycle is always available. You cannot lose permanently because the competition has no final round. The match continues as long as you choose to return. There are times when you must not compete. You must learn to distinguish competition from maintenance, recovery, and practice. Maintenance sessions. The work is done at the current baseline. The gap is not being measured. The conditioned self is being reminded of the standard. Maintenance sessions are the floor that prevents regression. Recovery sessions. The weight is light. The volume is low. The density is generous. You are allowing the conditioned self to recover and consolidate its learning. You're ensuring the conditions under which the next competition becomes possible. Practice sessions. You refine a standard without attempting to exceed a baseline. The standard is being installed, not tested. Practice precedes competition. If you cannot distinguish these from competition, you will compete until something breaks down and wonder why the gap never closes. One signal held for 12 weeks results in significant progress. It's the accumulation of that signal intelligently enforced across 40 to 60 sessions, hundreds of sets, thousands of reps. A clear signal, repeated consistently, produces a clear adaptation. 4 signals, applied inconsistently, produce noise. The single signal works because it respects your finite conscious attention. It produces clean feedback. It prevents the competition from becoming aversive. And it turns self-competition from a demand for constant winning into a practice sustainable across a lifetime. Self-competition is now defined and calibrated. The conditioned self is the adversary. The preferred self is the standard. The choosing self competes on one signal at a time. What remains is the recognition that this competition is not confined to the gym. The conditioned self follows you into every room, every conversation, every decision. You have the same finite attention at work, in relationships, in thought, as you do when hanging from the pull-up bar. In the next episode, we look at self-competition everywhere, how the 3 selves and the 4 signals appear in daily life, and what it means to compete against your conditioning in domains where there is no logbook and the scoreboard is invisible. Until then, choose one signal for your next session. Which dimension of the gap between where you are and where you want to be is widest? Compete on that signal. Maintain the others. Notice what changes in the quality of your attention. The choosing self that can focus on one thing is a choosing self that can win. As William James, the American psychologist and philosopher, put it, begin quote, "The faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character, and will." End quote. To exercise consistency and become the person who uses self-competition to train for every part of your life, join the ACT Score Challenge. That's it for today. Catch you next time.